Hi, I'm Allan Arkush, and this is Trailers from Hell. Back in the 1960s, I was a student at NYU Film School, and while I was at NYU, I was lucky enough to have a great job. I worked at the premier rock theater in New York City, the Fillmore East. First as an usher, then on the stage crew, and finally in the psychedelic light show. I got to see every great band from 1968 to 1971. I was crazy for that rock and roll music. And I had a professor at NYU, my favorite professor, who was just as crazy about rock as I was. He was always asking me for tickets, and being no fool, I tried to get him as good seats as I could because there was a show coming up that he had to see. It was the first tour by the band. So Professor Martin Scorsese got 4 tickets for the 4th row for the Saturday Night Late Show of the band. 7 years later, he directed The Last Waltz.
Object is to keep your balls on the table and knock everybody else's off.
Let me start out by saying I love this movie. To me, The Last Waltz is the greatest concert film ever made, or close to it. The idea started with lead guitarist Robbie Robertson. The band had been on the road for 16 years, first with Ronnie Hawkins as teenagers, and then most notably with Bob Dylan when he went electric. They were road weary. Robertson wanted out. He wanted to turn them into a studio band, but he wanted to go out with a bang, a final concert, a last waltz. Together with concert promoter Bill Graham, they put together this night of great music, and they thought, well, let's film it. Well, who could direct this? And Marty Scorsese's name was at the top of the list. He had been an editor on the Woodstock movie, and Robertson admired the way he used the Rolling Stones and the Ronettes music in Mean Streets and Bernard Herrmann's music in Taxi Driver. But Scorsese was in the middle of production on New York, New York. They met. Scorsese was swayed. The band was his favorite band. So he signed on, bringing with him production designer Boris Levin. Now, Levin had done West Side Story and The Sound of Music, which are not exactly rock movies, but he had this idea to use the sets from La Traviata and some extra chandeliers. The stage looks beautiful and the lighting is gorgeous. The camera crew was an all-star team of Michael Chapman, Laszlo, Kovacs, and Vilmos, Zsigmond, who received orders through headsets by Scorsese, who had meticulously shot-listed the entire show. Bill Graham produced the event on Thanksgiving night, 1976, and there's one moment in the concert where the camera cranes out of the darkness, coming down just like it would later on in Raging Bull. But instead of Jake LaMotta, we find Bob Dylan's white cowboy hat, and he's singing Forever Young. There are other great moments in the show. Muddy Waters, the regal king of the blues, sings Manish Boy, all in one shot. Van Morrison high steps it across the stage in the world's worst jumpsuit as he sings Caravan. Neil Young and Joni Mitchell together on a ghostly Helpless. And if you look really closely at Neil Young's nostril, you can see where they rotoscoped out this white glob of cocaine. At least that's the tall tale associated with the movie. And there's plenty of tall tales. There's interviews that the band give where they tell all their stories of the road. There's 2 scenes that were shot on a soundstage, which are interesting. But for me, the concert is what I keep coming back to. When I'm feeling low, I just pop the DVD into the player and it gives me a jolt of pure rock energy. So Professor Scorsese, I sure am glad I got you those tickets. And by the way, thanks for that A in the history of American cinema.
The road has taken a lot of the great ones. Hank Williams, Buddy Holly, Otis Redding, Janis, Jimi Hendrix, Elvis. It's a damn impossible way of life.